Why did Jesus stoop and write? What did it mean? And could it be that this seemingly small gesture was far more symbolic than we've dared to consider? Let's dive into the mystery, not merely to speculate on what Jesus wrote, but to uncover why he wrote and what it tells us about his identity, his mission, and the deeper echoes of God's hand throughout Scripture. The context: caught in the act, trapped in the law. A woman is dragged before Jesus by the religious leaders, accused of adultery. The law of Moses, they insist, commands that such a woman be stoned. Ephesians, Leviticus 20:10, Deuteronomy 22:22, John 8:6. But they aren't merely seeking justice, they are trying to trap Jesus. If he upholds the law, he contradicts his message of grace. Why delay his response by writing in dust? Was it merely to buy time? When the Lord finished speaking to Moses on Mount Sinai, he gave him the 2 tablets of the covenant law, the tablets of stone inscribed by the finger of God. Exodus 31:18. This physical act was an expression of divine authority and unshakable truth. But on dust, the very substance from which man was created, Genesis 2:7. This isn't a random gesture. It is a profound theological reenactment, a symbolic declaration that he is the same God who once inscribed righteousness onto stone. The law was written in stone, unchanging and eternal, bearing the fingerprint of the Almighty. I still write, but I write upon the hearts of men, not on tablets of stone. Or was he engaging in a deeper prophetic act that only those with eyes to see could begin to understand? I will be their God, and they will be my people. Jeremiah 31:33. He wrote on dust, possibly even into the dust covering the temple floor, if this encounter took place near or inside the temple. What Jesus wrote remains a mystery, but the effect is clear. Ezekiel 36:26. If he rejects the law, they can accuse him of opposing Moses. The story in John 8:1-11 is charged with tension. When he stooped to write, he was not undermining the law. He was revealing its deeper intent and demonstrating that mercy is not the opposite of justice, but its ultimate expression. It's in this volatile moment that Jesus bends down and writes on the ground with his finger. Twice, in fact. Jesus does not condone her sin. He forgives her, then charges her, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." Only God himself can do this. And he did it, not from a throne, but from a kneeling position, writing in the dust. John 8:11. But Jesus stooped down and wrote on the ground with his finger, as though he did not hear. Again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. John 8:8. The deliberate act of stooping to write twice is striking. Why didn't Jesus simply speak? John 8:9. The finger of God, echoes of Mount Sinai. To understand the gravity of Jesus' gesture, we must go back to the first time God wrote with his finger on Mount Sinai. Jeremiah 17:13. Those who turn away from you will be written in the dust. The same hand that carved stone at Sinai now etches mercy into dust. The same lawgiver who gave commandments from fire and cloud now gives grace face to face. The same God who once wrote justice into stone now writes forgiveness into the human heart. Others suggest he may have referenced commandments that the accusers themselves had broken. See the divine author writing a new chapter of grace, where love fulfills the law and mercy triumphs over judgment. Still others say the act itself was enough, a holy reminder that the lawgiver stood in their midst and that he saw into their hearts. Whatever Jesus wrote, it produced conviction, not condemnation, and this too reveals the heart of the gospel. The tablets were the work of God. The writing was the writing of God, engraved on the tablets. Exodus 32:16. The 10 Commandments, God's covenantal moral law, were not merely spoken. They were engraved by his own hand. And now, centuries later, Jesus, the Word made flesh, John 1:14, stoops to write with his finger again, but this time not on stone, dust and divinity. Writing on what is temporary, stone is permanent, dust is fleeting. When God wrote the 10 Commandments in stone, it was a testament to the unchanging nature of his law. But when Jesus wrote on the ground, this contrast is staggering. Jesus could be saying, "Yes, I wrote the law, but now I bring grace." This echoes a promise from the prophet Jeremiah, "I will put my law in their minds and write it on their hearts." And again in Ezekiel, "I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh." In Jesus' writing on the ground, we see the fulfillment of God's plan to internalize righteousness, to move beyond cold, external legalism into living, relational transformation. A message to the accusers: conviction, not condemnation. When they heard it being convicted by their conscience, they went out one by one, beginning with the oldest, even to the last. Some scholars speculate he may have written the sins of the accusers themselves, cf. Jesus as the new lawgiver. In Matthew 5, Jesus said, "Do not think that I came to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill." Matthew 5:17. In fact, the woman, though guilty, is not dismissed lightly. In doing so, Jesus upholds both the justice of God and the mercy of God. The finger of Jesus, divine, deliberate, and redemptive. The act of Jesus writing on the ground is more than a curious delay tactic. It is a theological symbol loaded with divine parallels. 1. Jesus' finger is the same finger that wrote the law at Sinai, affirming his divinity. 2. Jesus writes in dust, not stone, signifying a new covenant written not on tablets, but on hearts. 3. The act brings conviction, not destruction, fulfilling the purpose of the law to lead us to grace. 4. Jesus stoops. He humbles himself, just as he did in the incarnation and on the cross. This single action encapsulates the gospel. God stooping down to meet us where we are, writing truth into the dust of our broken lives, not to condemn us, but to restore us. Jesus' act of writing on the ground is a subtle but seismic moment. So the next time you read John 8 and picture Jesus writing on the ground, see more than a mystery. And remember, the same hand that wrote in dust also took the nails for your redemption. Let him write on your heart too.